Welcome to the Real Mama Pod.
I'm your host, Devon.
And I'm your host, Kendra.
We are real moms.
Sharing real experiences. The things people don't tell you.
Hey, mama, hey.
Hey, mama, hey.
How you doing, friend?
I'm good. How are you?
I can't complain.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't complain. We twins today.
Yes.
Half up, half down, ponytail action.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if this is your first time listening, I'm your host, Kendra.
And I'm your host, Devon. Welcome to the Real Mama Pod.
Welcome.
Yes.
So, how are you doing, friend?
Literally, I cannot complain. Only because I feel like everybody has a lot going on these days.
Yes.
So listen, taking it one day at a time.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend who's going through a lot, and she's like, I really feel like I have nobody to vent to because everybody I talk to is going through something. I was like, yeah, that's true, but I'm here to listen. What you mean, girl?
Yeah.
So
2024 has been a year.
It's been a hell of a year.
For damn near everybody I know. So we're gonna press on through.
We're gonna try.
We are. We're gonna do.
Yeah.
We're gonna press on through.
Yeah.
Speaking of pressing through, I want to push through to this guest that we have today because she has pushed through this door, and when I say gorgeous,
Drop it.
gorgeous. As soon as she walked in, I said, "Oh my gosh, you're so pretty." Now we saw her before, but it's like in person.
Yeah,
she's just beautiful, like naturally.
Her personality is there.
Yeah, it's like a light. So let me get into who we're talking about. So we have Miss Tally from Cali. Now her name is Tally, but she's from Cali, so it's like Tally from Cali, like just yes. Yes. So Tally we met her through a mutual friend. Our mutual friend, she was actually on our show, Nikita. Shout out to Nikita. But Tally is a nurse here in the Atlanta area. And when we met with her, she talked about how she really advocates for Black women and their maternal health, and she teaches them on how they can advocate for themselves. So in our conversations, we were like, you absolutely have to be on the show because, again, Devon and I have had some pretty traumatic birthing experiences with our kids, and sometimes we don't know like how to advocate. We don't know the questions to ask. We don't know who we should tap into to get the resources that we need, all the questions. And we're sure that there are a lot of moms and moms to be out there that have the same questions and they need to hear from someone like yourself. So we wanted to have you here to shed light and love. You've already done that. So
Just showing up.
So welcome to the Real Mama Pod.
Thank you.
From
I appreciate the invite and the beauty part. Thanks for the love. You guys are gorgeous too. So yeah, it's trying to match your energy.
You are.
So before we get into your Q&A, we always ask our moms to briefly describe their journey to mamahood because we think that's important. Sometimes hear other stories, especially when you have traumatic events, it just gives you some type of feeling like, okay, I wasn't the only person who went through this, or somebody may identify with your story because they went through that and they may not be as vocal to share their story, or if it was just a great, cool vibe, that's okay too because everything is not always traumatic and it should be a good experience. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Okay, well, I am a mother of three. I have 3 boys, so
Boy mom.
boy mom for life. Because I'm done. I'm getting shut down. So my oldest is 21, and my middle child is about to be 9, and then my baby, he's 7.
Okay.
So my first experience, I was in California. Well, all 3 of them were born in Cali.
Okay.
So it was a great experience. I really don't have any complaints. The only thing that was happening during that whole situation was I thought the doctor was about to cut me for an episiotomy. And I was like, wait, stop, hold it. Because I was in the middle of pushing, and he said, well, I'll cut you if I have to. Mind you, that was 21 years ago. Episiotomies were way more common.
What is an episiotomy?
That's when the baby's head is trying to come out of your vagina, and they need a little bit more space. So the doctor will take scissors and cut your vag down, and to make more space for the baby to come out. So they're not as common as they used to be. Now it's really an urgent matter, like the baby's not doing well and we need to get the baby out quickly. But we will definitely let a patient push for a lot longer before an appease is considered. But anyways, he was going to break my water, so he wasn't trying to cut me. And that would have been the only thing about that whole experience. I went all natural, so I didn't have an epidural.
Wow.
With my first two. And then the third one, I did get an epidural because I desperately wanted my tubes tied. And I wanted to make sure that procedure was going to happen after the fact. Yeah. So, let's see. I had the same doctor for all three of my kids.
Wow.
Yeah. So when Tyler came, that was an induction, a little bit of pit, got me going, and I actually told the nurse to turn it off. I was like, I think my body knows what to do.
What is pit?
That's Pitocin.
Oh, Pitocin. Okay, I just wanted to
So Pitocin
Wait,
is...
you had Pitocin naturally?
No.
The third one. Okay.
No, the second one. The second one. That was an induction. So I went in. The plan was to have Pitocin. The nurse started it. My contractions started coming. I did not have an epidural. I don't know if I got to like 2 or 4 of Pitocin, but I was like, okay, that's enough. Like, I know what to do now. I got the memo, and yeah, I had him. That didn't last for very long. He just came out and he just came sliding on out, all of them. I didn't push for very long.
Wow.
The last one, I did get the epidural, of course, because the plan was to get my tubes tied. And that was a whole experience because my blood pressure is naturally low. So when I got the epidural, my blood pressure dropped. I felt like I was going to faint. They had to give me medications to bring my blood pressure back up. This is common, it happens. It's a reason why we give you a very large volume of fluids before you get the epidural, is to try to prevent your blood pressure from dropping. That was the only complication with that. The baby was fine. I got my tubes tied.
She's like, yeah, we're good.
We're done. Yeah.
We're done. So have your doctors ever been intimidated because you are a labor and delivery nurse?
No. Okay. So with my first child, I was not a labor and delivery nurse. I was in the fashion industry.
Okay.
And that pregnancy and my delivery is what started my journey to become a labor and delivery nurse. It was that amazing. So yeah.
Wow. So that actually answered my next question. So you were a labor and delivery nurse, but how did that experience inspire you to become a labor and delivery nurse?
You know, it's crazy. My body was changing and I was reading all these books, right? And I was just like, this is like miraculous what a woman's body does to prepare to give life.
Yeah.
Like everything that changes, your hormones, everything is done to sustain life, to grow it. And then when you're closer to delivering, the hormones, everything that happens, how the milk comes in, it's just, it's a whole miraculous process.
Yeah.
And I just thought, like, even in giving birth, my nurse at the time, she was a midwife from another country, but she was practicing as a nurse here in the United States. And just my whole experience with her, I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And I had heard stories that, like, not everybody has a great delivery, and I was like, well, I want to be a part of this. So how can I do that without having 20 kids of my own? I can help other people have kids, you know?
So you mentioned midwife.
Yes.
How, like, do you encourage mamas to get a midwife, and if so, like, how does the working dynamic between a nurse and a midwife / doula, like, what does that look like?
Well, it can be different. I work in a hospital setting, so with if you're coming to deliver in a hospital, you can have a doula come with you. If you are delivering at a hospital that has a midwife, you would already have a midwife during your prenatal care.
Okay.
That would be working underneath the doctor at that specific hospital.
Gotcha.
So like my current hospital, we don't have midwives there, but other hospitals that I've worked at, they have midwives that work with the doctors.
Right.
So it's all about when you get pregnant that you want to choose your provider based on the type of care you want. So if you want a midwife, then that's what you should do. You should pick your provider based on that.
Gotcha.
With a doula, you can hire a doula to be there to work with the midwife or the OB. So that's not a part of what comes with, choosing your provider.
Yeah. How is the working relationship between, like, you as the labor and delivery nurse, but you have this person in the room that's also a supportive mama? Like, how does that look in, I guess, the room?
It varies, right? Sometimes there can be some tension. And I think that's because a lot of moms will have this idea that when you come to the hospital, like, we're out to get you, and we want to take you back for a C-section, and we want to, do all these things that you may not have in your birth plan. That's not the case. And then I've worked with some great doulas that understand the whole process. But the thing to understand is we are a hospital, right? We're there to intervene and to do something. I feel that if you want a less invasive delivery, then you should probably be thinking like a home birth or a birthing center. But those type of deliveries require that you have not a high needs pregnancy, not a high risk pregnancy. So I try to remind people, like, when you're coming to the hospital, we're going to start an IV, we're going to check you, we need to know what's going on because you're here for a reason.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You want to check all the boxes, make sure all is squared away before we get into all the things.
Right. And we don't want anything to go wrong. Like,
Right.
we don't want to be responsible for anything going wrong. So we have to double check. We can't just be like, well, this is, she's laboring and we don't really know and how far she's dilated or,
Right.
Even when we're like, oh, you don't want monitoring. Well, if you want to be induced, which a lot of people do now, they want to be induced at 39 weeks. Well, that means we're going to do something. We're going to give you a medication. We're going to break your water. We're going to do something that gets you to have a baby.
Yeah, and that is not fun.
So how do we fix that relationship, right? Because we know some great doulas. We've had doulas on the show who are great advocates that's even pushing for like policy change and really there to support mom. And actually, the doula we had on our show, she said she preferred hospital births at this moment in her career than like birth centers and things like that. So how do we have that relationship where the hospital, because right now I feel like in some situations, based on what you said, it's like hospital versus doula, right? Or hospital versus mama and doula. It's like, how do we make this cohesive environment where mom is happy, baby is safe, and you come home and you had a positive experience. Now we know this is not going to be every single case, but how do we change that narrative?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like with any relationship, there should be some level of communication.
Yeah.
One between the doula and the mom to set her up for the expectation of what to expect when she's coming to the hospital.
Yeah.
And to know, like, just because you have a doula doesn't mean that there's certain things that do have to take place when you're coming into the hospital. But also, and this is, now that you said that, I think maybe we should start doing this, or at least I will, is that if there's a doula in the room or if she's coming, that when she comes, that we talk about what the plan is together. Because if I'm there, I'm her nurse until 7 p.m.
Right.
And you're the doula, you're there. And we all want the same thing.
Right.
So let's figure out what the plan is and how we can compromise to make this happen. I mean, I think the last doula I worked with, she was amazing.
Okay.
But then they also said I was amazing because I was allowing them to do things that I think most other nurses wouldn't agree to. So, and then it depends on our patient load. Like, are you my only patient, or do I have another patient over here?
Right.
Because I have to keep you on the monitor.
Right.
And so I think I had checked the patient and I felt like the baby was OP, which means sunny side up, which we needed the baby's head to turn and flip to face down. And so doulas have some tricks up their sleeves that we can try to help turn the baby. And she was like, well, let's try to do this one thing. And I was like, well, put her on the floor. And she kind of looked at me and I was like, yeah, let's do it. I said, if I can get down there on my knees and hold the monitor in place while you shake her apples, then, let's do it. And
the goal is to help.
The goal is to help. But if I had another patient,
there's no way you
that I wouldn't be able to, like, and I'm, running back and forth, like, I have to be able to keep that baby on monitor if we're doing things, so.
That's fair.
So it just depends on the situation.
It definitely, every situation is different.
Yeah.
Every situation.
But I think the key thing there is communication. So
Right.
if you communicate with the doula, hey, by law, whatever, this baby has to stay on monitor.
Right.
I do have other patients, so do what you have to do, but just make sure the baby's stay on monitor.
Right.
Just having that communication, I think, would be helpful. So thank you for answering that.
Yeah.
And thank you for wanting to do one. Because she was like, oh, okay, I need to start doing this. So this is why you are where you are. Problem solver.
Yeah.
Right.
So with that, I do have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
So hospitals have bad reps right now, especially with the Black maternal rate of women dying at birth. I'm not blaming anybody per se. However, there's this bad reputation when it comes to hospitals. And for me, in my personal journey, especially with my oldest, I'm glad I was in the hospital. I thought I wanted a home birth. And we had some things happen when my son was not breathing. He had to be rushed to NICU that was 2 hours away, airlifted. It was no way that would have happened in a home birth, right? So I'm grateful for my experience. However, how do we change this narrative of the hospitals are out to get us? Because there are people like you in the hospitals that are advocating for women in general, advocating for families, advocating for babies, are accepting of doulas, of midwives, of all the extra resources, want to see policy change. But then it's like we get into this TikTok world or Instagram world where it's like, nope, the hospitals are doing this, they're doing that, they're killing us, they do it, you know? And then you like see other things on social media that may have not shed light on hospitals in a positive way, where we see like professionals talking bad about women, things like that.
Right.
So how do we get out of this?
Like anything, it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of conversations, and literally like one mom at a time. I think that what people are finding on the internet, they need to know their source, right? Just taking another mom's story does not make it your story, right? So because something happened to another mom at a hospital, that doesn't mean that's going to happen to you. But I think the biggest thing that people can do is educate themselves and literally advocate for themselves. Because a lot of times nurses, we are in positions where it is even difficult for us to say something. But as the patient, you can say to the doctor, you can plan with the doctor or the midwife how you want things to go. But there has to be an understanding that just because you say you want this type of birth, it doesn't mean it's going to happen, right? If the baby's not tolerating whatever it is that's happening, it's just not tolerating. And in the end, we want a healthy mom and a healthy baby.
Yeah.
I don't like going back to the OR. Okay, my goal is not a C-section.
Right.
If I can get that baby out through the smallest hole, that's my goal. Okay? But if that baby's not tolerating labor, right? If the baby's heart rate is dropping and we're not even pushing yet, right? Which has happened. I mean, I think it happened last week. She only made it to 1 centimeter and the baby was like, I don't like this at all. And every time we tried to restart the Pitocin, which she needed because she was not contracting, the baby was like not happy. And so she ended up going back for a C-section, which I feel was the best decision because you still got to get all the way to 10, and then you still have to push a baby out. So it's going to take a lot of advocating for ourselves and understanding what type of questions to ask the doctors, what type of questions to ask the nurses. And one of my biggest things that I love, a patient, she told me this. She was like, she likes to ask the question, whatever the intervention is, how is this good for me right now? How is this good? How is this bad for me right now? Like, what are the pros and cons for my situation in this current moment? Because let's say, for example, if the doctor comes in and is like, I'm gonna break your water, right? Like, well, there's pros and cons to both of that, right? It's a natural way to help induce labor. That's one. But if the baby's head is too high, you don't want to break the water then, right? Because then you could cause a cord prolapse. So if the doctor comes in or the midwife comes in and talks about breaking water, a good question is, well, what are the pros and cons for me right now? Based on my cervical exam, based on, my situation, my contractions, how far am I in labor? Is breaking my water a good idea? And what are the risks that are involved? So learning to ask questions with a good head, right? Not with the attitude. Because I promise you, I don't want to deal with you either if you're meeting me with straight attitude and I haven't done anything.
Right.
It changes the way people care for you and how they respond to you.
With my son, I had a high-risk pregnancy, and I was in the hospital for a month leading up to his birth. And the nurses and staff, like, those were my people. Like, this is all I had. And they were like, you're one of the best patients we've ever had. And I'm like, well, thank you. I'm not doing anything outside of just being myself. And they're like, you have no idea the type of people that come in with these expectations, very rude, this is what it has to be, or, so I do think that there's some accountability for us too, to be good patients, because you all are doing very hard jobs, very high risk work for even yourselves, and it's all a matter of how we treat each other in these scenarios. So you talked a lot about advocacy in this last question. And there are some moms out there that cannot afford doulas or have an opportunity to have a midwife, someone there to advocate for them and their needs. Are there any tips on, aside from the question that you shared that one of your patients asked, which is a great question, but when we think about moms who, like myself, I was completely out of it when I had my son. And there were decisions that had to be made, and I was not necessarily able to make those decisions because of my situation. But are there any tips that you can provide to kind of help, I guess, those moms navigate those tough conversations, questions to ask? Are there certain people they should have in their corner should they be in a position like myself, where my husband had to ask the questions, my mom had to ask the questions? Like, how can we talk through that? Those moms who may not be able to have someone like a doula or someone there to advocate for them.
Or a nurse like you.
Yeah, right.
That's what I was going to say, is that you have to choose your support system in advance. You have to be prepared because, first of all, like, not everybody goes to 39 weeks and you just don't go into labor, or you get induced. Sometimes things happen earlier at 20-something weeks, at 30. You just don't know. But choosing who's going to support you, who you want in the room, one, who you can tolerate, but two, they might not be thinking the same thing that you're thinking, but you have had this discussion and you're like, this is what I want. These are the questions that need to be asked. If this type of scenario comes up, this is how I want it handled. And also choosing your provider. I mean, that's a big deal. But not everybody has that luxury either, based on insurance, based on whatever. So and what makes you a good patient is not being, not questioning anything. I welcome the questions. I want to educate you. I want to tell you about what's going on. If I'm giving you a medication, you should know what it's for and what its purpose is and what risks are involved. So it's okay to ask questions. That doesn't mean you're being difficult. But make sure that your spouse or your partner or your best friend or whoever it is there to be able to ask those questions for you if you're not. I mean, look how much we prepare for a wedding, right? This is birth. This is your life. This is your child's life. Like, you should put as much preparation into what's about to happen as you would anything, like a wedding or a party or, I mean, I think people think like, oh, it's natural and things just happen. It's not.
I remember with my experience, the nurse actually, I would say, advocated for me in a way against my husband and my mom. So I had severe preeclampsia, so I had to be on magnesium for a full day, which means I couldn't eat or drink anything. And my mom and my husband were in the room with me. Like, of course, they're supposed to be there with me, but they were starving, right? So they ordered food and they ate it in the room, like, not like consciously thinking that, hey, she can't eat anything. So the nurse was like, hey, can you all leave the room, because clearly she hasn't had food in a day and it's not okay for you all to eat in front of her. And I'm like, you know what, girl, you're right. Y'all get out. Yes, advocate for me in all things,
Yes.
even if it's against my husband and my mom.
It's true.
It's important to have people like that in your corner. So good nurses I really think you all are special. So thank you for doing the great work that you're doing, because it's needed and people like myself appreciate it.
And it really takes a village, even when it takes a village to like have a child, and once that child is here, it takes a village for a child to get here too.
Yeah.
And I think those are the conversations we need to be having versus like us versus them. Like we're all a team.
Yes.
I'm a team person, I'm a team player, everybody knows that, so it's like what is going to benefit the team? I.e. really the mom and the baby.
Yes.
So if all these players are going to help this mama, then so be it. We don't need to be against each other.
No.
We don't need to have like this negative attitude. It needs to just be both have doulas and midwives just automatically, you know?
That
So
would be
it's,
great.
it's not like this outside person. It's somebody everybody's accustomed to. They're part of the staff, whether it's a male doula or a female doula, because that's the thing now that we learned about. But we're all a team and we're here for mom and making sure mom is safe. So that's my little 2 cents. But Tally the mom and Tally the nurse, are they two different people? Are they the same person? Why or why not? I have some friends that are nurses, and like it's funny to see the mom because it's like, oh, you're all right. You don't really let me see. Oh, you
It's like,
right.
but you ain't gonna pull out some things,
Right,
or
exactly.
no.
So I just want to know.
I think it depends on your specialty. So like people were like, oh, you're a nurse. Like I have this bump or whatever. Unless your bump is like you're pregnant. And it's trying to come out. I don't know if that is either. It's funny because I've had some urgent situations with the children. My last two, they had like a lot of breathing and asthma and stuff when they were smaller. And just as clueless as everybody else. Okay. And because of those issues, I know I overcompensate when they get hurt now. My oldest, my 21-year-old, he was burned when he was 1 at the daycare. That's another podcast.
Okay.
But talk about PTSD.
Yeah.
I have it. I definitely have it. Like, I mean, Tyler just fell last week, and I mean, I'm running, scooping him up. Oh my gosh, running home. You're gonna be okay. I mean, he had a little scrape on his knee, but I heard those knees like hit the ground and they cracked, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So no, I'm the opposite when it comes to. I'm not like, oh, I'm a nurse. You're okay. You're alive. Now for myself, totally different. Yeah, I'll be dying. Just like I ain't going to the doctor. I'm okay. Give me some Motrin or something. Yeah. But the kids, they scare me.
Yeah.
Well, I need you to take
Here. Yes, exactly.
I feel like because my other best friend, she's a pharmacist, and she's just like, oh, I'll just take some off-brand Tylenol, and quote, or acetaminophen.
Acetaminophen.
I was like, oh, okay, you're not gonna go. She's like, no, I know it's not that serious.
Yeah.
I'm like, y'all are just so lax about whatever.
But go to
the doctor.
or whatever the case may be, I need you to go to the doctor.
Go to the doctor.
Or at least consult.
We'll think about it. I just sent my husband a text message. Just a timestamp. I'm feeling a little something right now, just in case this comes back later. You know what happened.
Yeah. So back to your profession.
Yes.
I imagine that being a labor and delivery nurse has its challenges.
Yes.
What are some of those difficult, I guess, challenges that come with being an L&D nurse?
One is not always agreeing with what the doctor's recommending. Yeah. And then trying to navigate that. Where we want to advocate for our patients, we also know that we still have to continue to work with the doctors. So trying to get the patient to also understand, or the mom to understand, okay, this is what's going on. These are your options.
Yeah.
The next time the doctor comes in, why don't you ask them this? Or,
yeah.
So navigating that, the hours. If you're working full time, that's 3 12-hour shifts, and everybody's like, "Oh, you only work 3 days a week."
It's long.
3 long days.
3 very long days. So my day starts. I wake up at 5:05, to be on the floor at 6:45, and then I won't get home until after 8 p.m. And so if
And to
I'm
do it again.
right, and if I'm pushing with the patient for multiple hours, like, you know, when I say pushing, like she's trying to push the baby out. If I'm pushing beds down to postpartum, it's all very physical.
Yeah.
And then it can be emotional too, because
Tiny too.
yeah, it can be emotional because not every day is a good day.
Yes.
Not every birth is a great birth.
Yeah.
You know, there are sad stories, and when you're a mom, it hits different.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, you're more grateful. You think about your own children. You know, so those are the challenges, and it's not labor and delivery is different. We're our own world at the hospital. We are in the OR. We triage. We have actual patients. We labor them, and we're technically caring for 2 patients, right? Because we have to take care of mom, but then we're also making sure that baby's okay on the inside.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot, and then sometimes the baby just slide right out.
Yeah. It's like, all right.
Never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah. So
I can imagine the emotional side of that can be draining. It's like you have a situation and it was unfortunate. It's like, oh my gosh, now I have to go finish the rest of my 12-hour shift while carrying whatever that scenario may be into the next patient that may also have. It's a lot of people with a lot of things going on at the same time. You just kind of have to juggle all of that. Plus, do your work. You don't have an easy job.
Right.
no, and there's a lot of charting.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I would say from when I started 10 years ago, the crazy part is that when I started, people were like, oh, nursing is changing, da da da, and now I'm saying the same thing, oh, nursing is changing. So we have a lot of charting that we have to do, which makes it difficult to do as much patient care as we would love to do, you know.
So how do you decompress from all that? I know for me, because I'll have difficult cases or parents or students that experience something traumatic, right? And it's like, when I first started out in my field, I was like, I gotta adopt all these kids, I gotta bring them home, I gotta save them, but you can't, like, it's too many, it's just too many. And so I had to learn how to separate me as a psychologist and me as just my regular person, Devon, right? It took me a long time to learn how to do that. And I feel like in school, like, they talk about it, but it's not like, I feel like that should be a whole class to really mentally prepare you for the things you may see or experience when you're talking about loss of a student. In my case, when I have to talk to other kids about grieving and how to go through this or crisis intervention, you know? So how do you decompress? What does that look like for you? How do you separate the two?
Well, the good part is that I can leave work and then I come home and there's nothing I have to do there. But it does help also to have coworkers that have experienced the same things or, you know, and you're not the only nurse.
Yeah.
You know, when there's a delivery, another nurse comes in, there's other people who have to go through the experience with you.
Right.
And so those are the people that you end up turning to. You know, we hug, we cry, we're people. Just, you know, and we cry in front of our patients. If they're going through something, you know, sometimes we're crying with them. And just be honest with our feelings. But I can't say I can separate the two because if there was a loss and it wasn't at work, and if it was someplace else, it would still affect me as a person.
Yeah.
You know?
I had nurses cry with me. We were crying together.
Yeah.
It's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm glad you feel how I feel.
Sometimes you gotta express it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know we talked about the challenges, but what is rewarding for you?
Don't make me cry.
You love what you do.
I do. I feel like it was a calling. I do. So it's always an honor just to be there. I will be one of the people that they remember on one of the most memorable days of their life. I said that all wrong. I need to like restart. But it's always an honor, like to be there, for them to trust me, and just to be a memory in their whole story. Because I'm there at the beginning of the story of their child.
This is life-changing.
Life-changing.
Literally.
Never goes
Life.
back. Yes.
No, life is not gone.
Yeah, so I'm always trying to get somebody to name their baby after me. I got a middle name, but I haven't, you know.
Yeah.
I haven't got it.
It's coming.
It's coming.
Yeah, but I didn't find out until like after they had left. I didn't deliver her, but they did give the baby the middle name after me. So
She left that mark on her heart.
yes,
So
those are
wonderful
goals.
that
Yeah, for real, for real.
I feel like she has to be a part of our
Right.
community
Yes.
this way.
Yes.
So you obviously, you are a great nurse, you're a great person. You do great work. And I'm sure there are nurses out there who are fresh in their career or they're nursing students right now who could use some advice from you. What would you share with them?
Well, especially for new nurses who are like, I want to go into labor and delivery because I get to play with babies. No, you don't get to play with babies. Sorry. We deal more with the mom than anything else. But if you can possibly shadow someone or find a program where you can come and see what it's all about first before you commit to it, because it's a lot.
Yeah.
Just be honest with yourself about if it's really for you or not. And I've seen people that have come through and they've done the whole orientation and now they're ready to be on their own and they're just like, nah, I can't do it, it's too much. Just be honest with yourself. But no, it's hard work. You know, it's not all flowers and it comes with sacrifice and but it's worth it. It's worth it. And FYI, burnout is real. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. I don't care. I've always known that labor and delivery was my calling, and I'm at the point where like I'm starting to feel the burnout, and it's difficult to accept.
Yeah.
When you know like this is what you're supposed to be doing, and you're just like, why do I feel this way though?
Understood.
Understood.
That
100%.
That can carry over to a lot of other
Everything.
professions. I really love what I do, but damn, I'm tired. Like
And
this
sometimes it's the politics behind things.
Yeah.
It's not even the patient or the student or the kids. It's the people that is telling you what to do.
At the top.
And the loopholes that you have to jump through just to advocate and make sure whoever your client is the best, have the best that they can possibly have.
Yes.
But you have like these set of rules you have to go by. If it don't fit in those rules, then you can't do it.
Right.
So it's very frustrating. And I think that's what kind of have the onset of the burnout, because you're like, I can't beat the system.
You can't do the work you want to do.
Yeah, because I can't, and you come in thinking you're going to change the world, and then it's like, nope, I'm right back in this box, so you feel like you're not making a difference.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's what I struggle with, and I think that's where my burnout come from, because I'm just tired of like fighting the system.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tired of fighting the system. And then you talk to other nurses and they're all feeling the same way.
Yeah.
And
it's nothing you can do.
And that's why I'm at this point, I'm just like, I need to figure out how to teach women how to advocate for themselves in the hospital setting.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at right now.
Well, I think you have a calling there. I think I have one more question as far as bedside manner.
Yes.
Because sometimes, even when you go to the ER or whatever, there are some nurses who are phenomenal at bedside manner. There are some not so much. So like, give us like 3 just simple things a nurse can do to have good bedside manner. I know sometimes you're tired, especially if it's like the end of the shift and you're just like, I'm ready to be done. But still, that's important. That is important, and that can actually make or break your relationship with your patient. So 3 things.
Your whole experience. 3 things. Well, 1, put yourself in that person's situation. If you are a first-time mom, if you were a first-time mom and you're sitting in that bed and now the stranger comes into your room, how would you want them to make you feel? You know, you're probably scared or nervous and you don't know what's about to happen. Like, think about how you would feel and do that for them, right? 2 is be willing to have a conversation, you know, find out about them and how they're doing and what their needs and what their expectations are. Because even when I've done that before, you know, I get met with the attitude. And I've had to, like, check people, like, excuse me, what did I do to you? Like, we just met. Like, you're already coming at me with the chip on your shoulder. So what's going on with you? Maybe you are scared. Maybe you are nervous. Let's talk about it. So we can facilitate this, because we're going to have to be together for a little bit longer. 3, I would say, be a team player, right? Work well with others, because especially in labor and delivery, it is a team sport. We all have to work together. If I call out and I call out for help because something's going on, you know, I'm I'm gonna need you to work with me, and I'm gonna need to trust you.
Yeah.
If you're calling the doctor for me, I'm gonna need to know that if I've asked you to do something, that you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
And just to kind of piggyback off that question, for mamas who are on their way to the hospital and about to have this baby, like what advice would you give them? And they're nervous, they have all these feelings and emotions, and they get into this room, they're getting wheeled in, and they're being met with someone like you. Like, what advice would you give them as they prepare for their experience to have their baby?
Tell us your feelings.
Yeah.
Because we can kind of cushion that and be maybe more gentle. Sometimes when things aren't going as planned, it gets kind of chaotic and we're running around, but at least if we know that these are specific things that you're nervous about, then we can give you a little bit more love in regards to what that is. And involve your spouse or partner or friend or whatever. Like, don't leave them over there on the couch doing whatever they're doing. Like, they need to be a part of it too, because it truly takes a village.
Yeah.
Like, this whole labor, it's hard work.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. No freaking joke.
You fall through it, and you also literally deliver babies.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, hard work, that means mama juice.
I know. Well, before we go to Mama Juice, I want to make sure I know, like, what's next for Tally.
What's next for me? Right now it's up in the air, but I am writing a book to try to teach women how to advocate for themselves, which sets them up with the questions that they need to ask their providers, the nurses, whoever, about what might be happening. So that's one. I'm currently considering going back to school for my nurse practitioner license, so we'll see about that. And right now, just hanging out with the kids, trying to figure out this work-life balance, because I think that's important, the balance part.
Right.
If you don't do the balance right, then you're not gonna like anything.
Yeah.
You're not gonna like work, you're not gonna like family, you're not gonna like any of it, because you're just so stressed. So.
Yeah. When you figure that out, let me know. Because I'm trying to figure that out. Right. As we speak. But yes, Mom. Let me grab my drink. I know. So when we asked Tally what she likes to drink, she gave us all the M names. So Mama Juice is my favorite segment of the show. Okay. I love cocktails. I love beverages. I love a nice drink. And it had to be a part of the show, because who doesn't like a cocktail or a mocktail? Cocktail or a mocktail. But we always ask our guests, like, what is your flavor? What do you like? So that we can accommodate you in our show, right? And you gave me all the M's: martini, mule, margarita. And I'm like, okay, we can work with all of this. So we have inspired as like a blueberry margarita. So I'm gonna, and it also has basil in it. So I'm gonna run down the ingredients so we can talk through your drink. So your drink is called Push It Real Good. Okay. Obvious reasons, right? Push It Real Good. So it has fresh blueberries, fresh lime. Y'all know I love fresh ingredients.
No.
Fresh ingredients. Fresh blueberries, fresh lime, fresh basil leaves. It also has 1.5 ounces of tequila. It has 1/2 ounce of triple sec, and it also has 1/2 ounce of agave. And if you like to salt or sugar your rim, you can do that. I would suggest salt, but that's just my preference. I know that there are some sugar rimmers out there, but it's a really good drink, fresh.
Yes.
We're in the spring, summertime, so if you're on a patio, this is a vibe for you.
Yes.
If you do not drink alcohol, totally fine. We got you covered with a mocktail. You can have all of these ingredients minus the tequila, and you can use a non-alcoholic triple sec and top it with soda water. So
Love it.
push it real good.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's good.
Push
It's actually really good. It's really good. Because I don't
Devon,
do tequila.
no,
Y'all
if
know
she
I
been
don't do
sipping,
tequila.
y'all ain't seen her sipping during the episode. I saw you over there, girl.
It's good too.
Thank you.
So this is your first time listening. We also have a segment called Mama's Corner. Mama's Corner is my favorite segment because this is our opportunity to connect with our guests further and our listeners. So sometimes our listeners will write in and ask us a question, and we answer that question. But I think we can use this time to be reflective. Again, going back to that narrative of moms feeling nervous about hospitals. How can we put moms at ease? We know traumatic things has happened in the hospitals where the hospital was at fault. The doctor was at fault.
Yes.
Some of these things people are at fault for lack of care, for not listening to the patient, to just not taking them seriously, whatever the case may be. But there are some good providers out there, such as yourself, right? And I don't want that to get overshadowed by all the bad people that's out there. Hopefully we get rid of them within the next year, because I'm sick of it. I'm tired of hearing these stories. But to that mom who has to have a hospital birth because she's at risk, or she's 35 and older, our age group.
Well, tell them how old we are.
We 30 something. How do we put that mama at ease? Because that's what we're all about at the Real Mama Pod. Like, really, yes, we are factual. We're gonna keep it real, but at the same time, there is hope.
Yes, and it all stems from what you do for yourself. So don't be afraid to say no.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to say, I need to find out more about this. Can you tell me more about this, right? Your nurse or your doctor or your midwife, whatever it is that they're recommending, they should be able to educate you on what it is that they're trying to do. Don't be afraid to ask, can we do this later? What's the benefit of doing it now? So I don't want people to be like, oh, I can just go to this hospital and I know they're going to take care of me or whatever, because it's not the hospital. You have different providers on different days that are also human, that also have bad days. Like, you have so many factors. And then in addition to whatever's going on with you, whatever risks you have, whatever, just make sure, you're asking those important questions. Is, how is this good for me now? Is it not good for me now? Like, what's the benefit? What's the con? And if you don't have enough information about it, if you're not sure, can I take some time, look this up, make a decision? Can I call some, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just be, more comfortable trusting yourself and trusting your gut that, okay, you know what, that makes sense. But don't just shoot everything down because you saw somebody post it on TikTok or YouTube or whatever their experience was, and don't just do it because that's what everybody else is doing.
Right.
I feel like there should be a study on how social media has affected the healthcare system, practices, or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's a different.
We have to bring it back for that.
I feel like there should really be a study about that.
Because some information out there is helpful.
Yes.
But some of it is like, okay, that's an isolated incident, but because it went viral, now that's just a thing that happened, right? So it's like you have to look at it through your own lens, and sometimes we don't do that.
And be aware, hospitals don't have good reviews. Why? Because people die.
Yeah.
I mean, in life, that's what happens, and
Yeah.
sometimes it happens at a hospital, and then you have emotion. And I'm not saying labor and delivery, but I'm saying just in general, you can't expect a hospital to have this great review because things happen.
Yeah, and people typically write reviews when they've had a really bad experience or just a magnificent.
That's me.
There's nothing in between. So,
I got a review I need to write. Speaking of,
piss me off. I ain't write the review.
Yes, tell your whole thing. 1 star. If I can give them 0, I would.
Yeah.
Well, this was great. We're so thankful for your time. So if people want to reach out to you further, where can they find you?
I am on, speaking of social media, Labor Nurse in Your Purse.
Oh,
So,
Your tag.
yes. Don't expect too much from me right now. It's summertime and I'm hanging out with the kids, but at Labor Nurse in Your Purse on Instagram, and do I have a Facebook? I'm not sure.
Most of us are on Instagram.
But Instagram, you can find me, send me a message. I do plan on, finishing this book and getting out there because I think it's important.
Absolutely.
So, and I think it would be helpful for people just to be able to flip to a page and be like, oh, this is what they're talking about. This is the basic. This is what I need to ask.
Right.
It's not going to tell you what to do,
Yeah.
but just tell you what to ask so you can advocate for yourself.
Love that. Well, we have to have you back when that book is ready, so we could dive in.
And then we'll have a new kind of dream.